your sample yardage should be the right quality, color, and pattern as well. Hey, what's up? This is Antonio Aguirre, and this is Retail Fashion Business. And today, we are going to be talking about the complete retail production process. So there's 12 important steps into the production process in retail. And these are the things that I learned throughout the years. There are some processes wherein you might have to skip or could skip. But for those starting from scratch, this is what I would say is one of the least glamorous parts in retail. Like if you are a creative director or if you're a brand owner, this is the non-glamorous part wherein people don't see the process. These are things you don't really share on your TikTok or on your Instagram, right? Because you show off a finished product already. So the production process, as I said, it's less glamorous, but it is a huge part of the fashion industry, but it's an important one nonetheless. There's a lot of steps in production. There's 12, like I mentioned. You need to make sure you leave plenty of time and manage the process correctly. Let's go on and talk about the 12 important steps. Let's go over each one of them. So the first important process, which is prepare your tech packs. Okay? Tech pack is the most important thing when starting a production. Without a tech pack, your manufacturer will not know which colors you want to produce on a shirt. For example, what colors they will use, what's the sizing, where you will put the emblem, the size difference of each size, and all the important details. A tech pack will include everything that the manufacturer needs to produce everything. Once your design is ready, you put your tech pack together for the manufacturers to see. And once they see it, it's important that everything is accurate to the very last inch. Or maybe if your manufacturer is in China, they use centimeters right there. Here in the Philippines and in the US, we use inches. It's important again that the information that you give is accurate and it's final. It's not a draft. And you have included every single detail there is to the last one. So the manufacturer understands exactly what you mean. You don't just say, I want maybe about 2 to 3 inches space here, or perhaps, you don't do that. You give exactly. If you want to say that the length of this would be 21 inches, for example, or 25 inches, and that's for a medium, you put it there for every size. The manufacturer understands that for you and does not second guess what you mean with that. So what's included in a tech pack? Number one, you should include the material, which factory you'll be working with, who you're sending these tech pack to, the style number. So you create a style number. It's like your own record keeping of all the styles that you have. So you have a style number and then the complete description of it and then who designed it and when was it designed, the final date of designing, the thread that you use, the cuff, the buttons, the labels included with it, and the front cover of it. So those are all included in the tech pack, including the exact color for every print. If there's a print on a shirt, for example, your shirt has a print, for example, I use white, so I just use 00000. If it's a specific blue color, say what the specific color is for blue. Because there are a million types of blue. So you can't just say, I want that to be blue. You have to say which color it is so that they will find the exact color to match what you want. So that's number one, prepare your tech pack. Let's go on to the second process, which is order, sampling, fabric, and trim. So what happens here? After your fabric and trim sourcing, you order enough yardage. Okay, you order enough yardage just to create a sample. Okay, it's not the entire thing yet. It's just for sample making. And you use it for what we call fit samples. Fit samples that you use on to a model. Usually the model is a medium. But for me, I use large, so I can use it as well. That's what I did. So I have a lot of clothes before. So I use large instead of medium. That was my request for all my manufacturers. We don't use medium. But normally, they use medium. And then they find a model who's a medium to style fit in them. So that they can create samples for example, if you have a sales agent and then you have stockists that you want to work with, you send it to your sales agents as an example. So it's not a finished product, but it's like a prototype for each design. For example, a denim jacket, a shirt, sweatpants, hat, hoodie, whatever, underwear, whatever. Just remember this, your sample yardage should be the right quality, color, and pattern as well. It's exactly what your final design will use. Because, for example, if you use 97% cotton and then you use 70% cotton on your final output, like the one for mass production, you're gonna have problems with your stockists because what they ordered is not what they're getting. You can do maybe 10 when you say samples. You can do 10. It depends on how many you're sending it to. First, for example, I'll make Rilla as an example. We send it it to two big stockists, which is two department stores. I can't mention the name, but those two department stores will order specific count. So I will make 3 samples for one and for the other 5 just because they have 5 people who will approve it. And the other one will have 3 people who will approve it. It matters, right? How many? And then you have one stockist who's just a small startup store or a small store. So maybe you can just send one of each. It really depends how many will approve of it. But usually one would be good enough as a startup brand to give us as a sample. And usually we don't get it back anymore. You usually leave it with them just in case that design would be something of a back order that they want to order more of those. We'll talk more about those later on. But that's number 2. Order sampling fabric and trim. Number 3, let's move on to develop a pattern. Most of you know when you start up a clothing brand, you start off with a shirt and then you just buy what we call a ready-to-wear type of shirt. Let's say Blue Corner or, for example, Gildan shirt. You use that and then you print your design on a shirt and that's it. You supply that, right? It's ready-made. But most brands use a pattern of their own. So they have their own sizing for their shirts. So not all shirts will look like a medium to you. Like a medium on one brand would be a large on another brand and maybe sometimes double XL. It's really weird because, that's the sizing of each brand. That's what makes a brand unique. Pattern development affects every fit for sure. So you need to make sure it's accurate always. And it includes exactly what your brand sizing is. For example, like with Soulslam, we use a specific size that we patterned with another US clothing brand. And we followed that pattern ever since. It didn't change. So a medium will always be a medium. A large will always be a large. It won't be differentiating from size to size. When a brand goes through different pattern sizes, people get confused. And that's a problem. So you want stay put with one sizing that you have. Unless, of course, your description of the shirt is oversized, regular fit, or slim fit. That matters as well. Pattern making can be tricky and it can be time consuming. So you need a very good, what we call this, a pattern maker. Usually pattern makers are very highly skilled in terms of designing the pattern. For example, let's say denim jackets or jeans. There's a pattern maker that's really good in making jeans but not really good in making maybe a polo shirt, for example. But you need to find pattern makers that are specific for each type of product that you make. Rarely you will find a pattern maker that's a jack of all trades. Usually they're a master of one craft of their own. So they know how to make, the exact cut for every type of jeans, for shirts, even for hats, and so on and so forth. You need to consider finding the right support for that. I suggest you work with the pattern maker if you want to make your own sizing for your shirts. That itself is branding by itself because you have your own sizing. You may have a shirt that's a little bit shorter than most. You may have a shirt that's longer, or the sleeves could be, wider or boxier. Some will be a little fit. I mean, a shirt, same shape. The sizes could really vary. So those are all different factors. So that's number 3, develop your own pattern. Moving on to number 4, which is create a prototype. So this is not the final product. This is a prototype, it will be the sample basis for everything. It will have the final approval and everything. So a prototype is a sample with the correct design features, including the buttons, the rivets, or the zippers, everything that you use to put in together to have the finished product. So it includes the silhouettes, the proportion, and details such as where your pocket will be located, how high it would be, where you would put the labels, all the brandings and such, and the size. The sizing, of course, that's important. The prototype is made with what we call a substitute fabric because it's just a prototype. And it's similar to the actual fabric, but not actually the same fabric to save the fabric. A sample yardage, usually it's hard to find yardage of exactly the product that you're going to use. Usually, it's still going to be manufactured by the manufacturer. For example, if you want to order, let's say, 500 kilos of one type of fabric, you order a small sample size first. And then when you're ready, we'll talk about that later, the manufacturer will create or fabricate the entire 500 kilos order that you have. That's why a substitute fabric is used in this type of process for creating a prototype. Number 4. Moving on to number 5, which is create a fit sample. This is where we have now your model, where it be a guy who wears a medium, depends on his height, maybe a girl, if it's for women's clothing brand, or for kids, a specific size. A fit sample is usually made with sample yardage based on the concluded prototype. So it's based on number 4. A fit model will wear the garment so you can get your correct or the right fit that you're looking for. And then this is where you finalize your actual pattern. So now, after you get the right fit, you now go back to your pattern maker and say, this is the right pattern that I want. By the way, with the pattern maker, they use something with like a board wherein they put the fabric on top of it. That board that they can cut out is something that they can use because all shirts, they have specific cuts. And this is like the front part, this is the back part. It's all bolted, joined together. This is one part, and another part as well. And this one is another part as well. 4 different parts. So So that one is included in the pattern itself. So that's number 5, creating your own fit sample. Okay, let's move on to number 6, which is select the final sample collection. You want to calculate here the estimated cost of each design. Okay, so you don't want to go crazy on your expenses of how much your products will cost. I mean, I don't care how nice your design is. If you're on a budget, you want to follow that budget that you have. You want to calculate the estimated cost of each design based on the prototype production that you already have, which is based on number 5 and number 4. So you remove styles that's not a clear fit to your entire collection. Remember, I talked about, creating your own collection. You want to remove styles that are what we call too time consuming, because time consumption means more money being spent on. And then they become more expensive to actually produce. So for example, this shirt may have, let's say, 10 types of prototypes. So you choose one final prototype that you like, and then you stick with that. That's selecting the final sample collection, process number 6. Now, this is my favorite part because this is where you start thinking about how much money you're going to make, which is step number 7. Take orders and prepare for production. You're now producing your own product, not just for you, but also you're going to do pre-orders. You're going to start pre-selling or sending your sample garments and sample designs to various stockists, stores, maybe showrooms, or maybe if you're joining trade shows, you can have flyers going out to the trade shows for people who are, interested in selling your products. For example, there's a store somewhere in another location that wants to sell your products. So what I usually do, we do 3 seasons in advance. For example, if you're doing something this January, February, March, you're doing already something for October, November, December, and they're already choosing for that season. Sometimes it's just for 2 seasons in advance, but some streetwear brands that I know do 3 to 4 seasons in advance in orders so that they have a long buffer, should any problems arise. And with that, you are able to start, getting feelers about your designs, if it feels good, if you have a huge order, if you meet the requirements in terms of the orders. And this is a good way to confirm the orders that you get from them. For example, this retailer wants to say 10,000 pieces of a specific shirt. So that's where you make 10,000 pieces of that. And then you start calculating the quantities for production. So now, let's say the shirts that total in the order that you pre-ordered total to, let's say, 100,000. And then your manufacturer can only do, let's say, 50,000. So now you have to find another manufacturer that can supply the other 50,000 for you, because not all manufacturers can do that total all at the same time. Remember, they also have other clients as well, not just you. The quantities for production are really, really important to know in advance. So make sure all orders are confirmed. When I say confirmed, they've already paid, let's say, a down payment. Usually a down payment consists between 30 to 50%. I rarely see a 70% down payment, but usually it's at 30 to 50%, and it's confirmed before you even start production. Never start production without getting a certain down payment, because you're gonna have problems with your stocks if they're done and they cancel the orders, even with the contract. You don't want to go to court with someone because you have an order that's still pending payment and such. Take orders and prepare for production. Step number 7. Quick step, which is number 8, which is grading your pattern. This is now where you have extra small, medium, large, XL, double XL, triple XL, or if you're a brand like Fubu, you have 6XL. Or if you're a brand with big sizes, you have 8XL. I mean, in the US, they do up to 6 to 8XL. Pattern maker will grade the patterns based according on the sample fit that you made. For example, if your model is a medium, he will now adjust for a small, for a large, for an XL, and so on and so forth. So that's the disparity in terms of the grading of the pattern across all the sizes offered in your entire collection. So that's how you make sizes. Start off with medium. Well, again, I start with large and then go down to medium, small, and extra small. I never had double XS. No, we did once, double XS for one design. But usually it's extra small to about 3XL. And then with the ordering, it goes like this. It's like a pyramid. But in the Philippines, of course, there's a lot more medium. So medium, small, and then it goes down, of course, the 2XL, 3XL sizes. So that's number 8, grading your pattern. That's what we call grading pattern. Moving on to number 9, which is create a pre-production sampling garment. What does it mean? Pre-production, or what we call PP sample, is something that's made by the manufacturer after you made an order. So this is you talking to your manufacturer about the pre-production sample. This is not a prototype already. It's a pre-production sample. And it is extremely important that it is accurate already, as this is going to be your manufacturer's reference for your bulk production. So this one sample would be the basis for, as I say, your 100,000 pieces order. So you have to make sure this is correct. You can't say, oh, I like this blue, but can you make it a little darker? No, not anymore, because that's the final one. And this is the thing that you talk about and say, okay, this is the one. Once you approve it, there's no turning back. In the middle of production, you can't say, oh, can you change the blue to green? No, you can't do that anymore, because you already signed it off. Usually, you sign it off and put your signature on it that this one is the final reference for bulk productions. This is what we call creating a pre-production sampling garment. That's step number 9. Number 10, the ball is in the court of your manufacturer, which is proceeding with what we call the bulk production. So now you have an order of 100,000 shirts. After the samples are approved, the manufacturer will then start the bulk production. If you can't manage the production yourself, what you do, it's important to hire what we call a production manager. So what the production manager does, it's he or she oversees the entire process. So you don't have to go there yourself. Of course, if you're on a budget, you can do it yourself. But it's time consuming, because every day, if you're producing only 10,000 shirts, every day you're going to be there for the next 10 days. And so just checking on the production. Better hire a production manager if your brand can afford to do so. But this is not yet the quality control, which we will go on later on in the last 2 process. So that's number 10, bulk production. Moving on to the second to the last step, which is implementing a quality control check. Implementing quality control checks at all stages of the process. Of course, it's possible. But if something doesn't meet your standards, it should not be approved. You cannot say the word pwede na or yeah, that's fine. It should be perfect. This is where perfect comes in. It cannot be not perfect or, a pass. It should pass your quality control standards, especially if your positioning in the market is a high fashion brand. If something doesn't meet your standards, of course, it should not be approved in any way. So the earlier you identify the quality problems, the less money and time you will waste afterwards. Imagine this. If your supplier makes 100,000 pieces of that shirt and you do quality control. So basically, how we do it is this. Pick randomly 5 times in that set. Let's say batch 1, and you look at number 12,000 to 12,500. So inspect all of those as sample, and if you find errors in those, you take those out. If there's a mistake in the sizing, for example, of small, and it looks like a large, so you take those out. That's a margin. There's something what we call margin of error, because it's always possible, even if it's made by a machine, that there's a chance, there will be production errors. So you leave about 3% at most as production error. That 3%, is not sold. That's where the quality control is. It's same with shoes. With shoe brands, what they do, they check specific production parts of it, not the entire thing. And then when they see errors in it, that whole batch, for example, that I said 12,000 to 12,500, that whole batch will be washed away. It's removed because there's an error in between that. So that's how they check it in terms of, bulk. That's how fast fashion brands do it. So that's number 11, implementing a quality control check. You need what we call a QC manager here. And then you have a QC supervisor as well. And then you have a quality control specialist as well. So they do all the quality control checking for you, because the last step, which we'll be talking about, is where everything goes out already. Usually, the one that covers that cost is the manufacturer, because they make that error, not the one that made the order. It's usually the manufacturer, because it's their fault. There's an error. Usually, for sometimes, the stitching would be an error because they haven't aligned the machines properly. So if there's no alignment check. So usually, before the start of bulk production, they set an alignment and they set an alignment sampling to make sure that the machine is stitching properly, because there could be, just a short millimeter of error, and that's it. Imagine, for example, if your logo is, let's say, very small, and then they make a small error. For example, you have a tiger, for example, and it has 2 teeth in front, and a teeth goes out a little bit to the side. So now your brand will look fake, and that entire thing is just a waste. It's really important that the machines are fine-tuned. Something like a guitar. Before you start playing the guitar, you make sure that it's fine-tuned. Same with machines. They will be prone to error if you start producing and it's not fine-tuned. When you buy a printer, that you do a setup first and it sees if it's all in line at the same time. If it's not, you repeat the process until you get it perfect, because it cannot be 97% perfect. It has to be 100% perfect. Otherwise, everything will be misaligned. Final step, and this is all about packing and shipping. Buyers usually have what we call a specific instruction set that they have. For example, your buyer who made 100,000 pieces of order, they have a specific instruction and request when it comes to packaging and shipping. For example, they may want to use their own specific packaging for each individual shirt that you pack, not your own brand. They have requests when it comes to packaging and shipping, so it's important to follow the buyer's instructions correctly. If you are in agreement with it, of course. Of course, that you ship it on time within within a specific time frame. That's why you have a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day schedule that you follow, that you both agree on. Because if you say you're gonna deliver between March 1 to March 31, you should deliver within those dates. If you deliver later on, you'll get penalized for that. And that's a problem, and that's a loss for you. If you deliver, let's say, on April 15, that's 15 days, so you get a penalty for 15 days of being late in terms of your delivery. The problem is, not just penalty, but they might actually refuse to receive your goods, and it's part of their contract. So now you're left off with stocks that you cannot, would be hard for you to sell. And then there could be, of course, with shipment, there could be chargeback fees as well included with it, and storage fees. I mean, where are you gonna put all those stocks in your storage? So that's gonna be a storage problem for you as well. Make sure it's all time-based and based on, the agreement that you have between you, the manufacturer, and your buyer, that you're all in agreement in a time frame. So that's number 12, packing and shipping. So that's the 12 process for the complete retail production process. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section, and I'll be glad to answer any of your questions.